Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and Endeavour Silver. Again, we are still at the offices here, and now we are talking about the company, of course, but we talk about a specific theme, social responsibility, because I think a lot of mining companies in the past did not the good things, what they should do with the workers and all the communities, and Endeavour Silver is an excellent example how you should do it right and how you should work in alignment with your people and your community and the families of your workers. And Bradford Cooke will elaborate a bit about that. Brad, thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Social responsibility. This is something which is very important to you personally, but also for Endeavour Silver. And what I would describe, you have this like an ethic code in your company, right?
Very much.
So maybe give us some examples. What are you doing for your people?
So let me give a little background first on CSR. Corporate social responsibility really only came about in recent years because of the rise of civil rights in the 60s, the rise of environmental awareness in the 70s, the rise of sustainable development as a concept for business in the 1980s and 90s. And when I arrived in Mexico in 2003 and when we acquired our first mine in 2004, neither myself nor my colleagues had any experience or even knowledge about this whole concept of sustainable development, CSR. But we did have a pretty good idea of how to build a business in a ethical way. And really what I want to do is relate to you the story of how Endeavour not only built a business, but built relationships that allowed that business to flourish.
Yeah.
And that is at the heart of CSR. In fact, what we discovered very quickly when we went to Mexico is that if you want to build a commercial enterprise, first, make friends. Then,
very important,
build relationships. Then, do business.
And probably take care of the environment.
And you're taking care of all of the aspects of sustainable development. So what do we mean by that? We mean corporate governance. What is your ethic? You know, are you doing the right thing? Number one. Number two, economic sustainability. If you're going to make investments and build or grow mining operations, it's not just about the management and the shareholders. You also have to consider the employees, the contractors, their families, the government, the environment, and all of these things come into play in building a sustainable business. Next up would be health and safety. You know, underground mining is a risky business, and the first priority for any company, especially Endeavour, is to make sure that our people, our employees, come home safe at the end of every day.
Absolutely, yeah.
In terms of the environment, you know, when we arrived in Mexico, there were all regulations in place, but few companies actually delivered North American quality environmental standards. They delivered Mexican quality. And we brought our own standards with us. And I'll give examples of what we've done on a proactive basis.
Yeah, that would be good, yeah.
Education in the local communities, supporting cultural events in the local communities is all about building those partnerships, those relationships, and then allowing them to flourish. So if I were to summarize, and I refer to some paperwork here, we had no formal sustainable development or corporate social responsibility experience when we arrived in Mexico. We were basically two geologists looking to build a business. And we did, fortunately, hire a senior geological engineer who had relationships already. His name is Miguel Ordaz. And he showed us how to get business done in the local communities in Mexico. So our initial success was driven by engaging with people, listening to people, and actually addressing their concerns, so many of which were outside of the actual business transaction, if you will. We then actually formalized a few years ago our holistic approach to business by putting policies in place. So we put in, like I said, corporate governance policies. And that then actually evolved just in the last 3 years to something much more rigorous, quantitative reporting of our sustainable development activities. And Endeavour, believe it or not, when we started reporting under the internationally accepted GRI system of sustainable development, we were one of only 7 Canadian mining companies reporting at the highest level.
7 only from
Canada.
From like 5,000.
And so little old Endeavour Silver decided to take the high road and not only doing the right thing, but telling our people about it. So that's a quick summary. I mentioned earlier on that strong community relationships, or social license as it's called, is essential to the success of any mining venture. And we've enjoyed a lot of success, as you know, in Mexico, growing a larger and more profitable business every year.
And by the way, how many people you employ in Mexico?
Well, we have at this time 1,700 employees, 1,000 contractors,
That's
and so let's do the math on it's called the economic impact. And so we directly impact 2,700 people, but they have families.
Yeah, and
and
children
if you assume that they're, maybe we have 2 more people for each employee, or it's actually normally a 3-to-1 ratio that you use for the economic multiplier, all of a sudden we're talking about 8,100 people. And that doesn't include all of the people providing indirectly the services and goods that support an operation, food and power and all of the related facilities. And that doubles our economic impact to 16,000 people. So Endeavour actually has quite a far-reaching economic impact, even though we're still considered to be a small company.
Yeah, but you're a real economic factor for those people, because you pay wages on the one side, on the other side you pay taxes, and on the third side you behave yourself in a real good way. That means the environment gets better. I mean, everything is on the positive side, right?
So I started off by saying that the first element of sustainable development is ethics. So let's talk a little bit about that. What we realized very quickly was that when people are listening to you and you're coming into their community proposing to build a business, they really just want to know that they can trust you. So there's some really simple rules of thumb. Listen as well as talk. Take care of some of their needs. And perhaps most importantly, when you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah. That's important.
You know what? When you do that, that's true anywhere in the world, but particularly in Latin America, if you actually build this level of trust, which can happen very quickly, if you say you're going to do something and then you turn around a month later and you've done it, then that really helps to build the trust quickly. And so that's part of the reason for Endeavour's success. We recognized that those types of decisions are all about who we are. We had to ask ourselves, well, who is Endeavour Silver? What are our values? What do we really want to accomplish here? And our view is that if you build a business, it should have a benefit, obviously, to the shareholders, but it should benefit the employees, but it also should benefit the larger community of stakeholders. And I'll give you some examples of that. So let's talk about, we touched on economic sustainability, let's talk about health and safety. When we arrived in Mexico, again, there were safety standards, but few of the mines that we purchased were actually operating at North American level standards. It was perhaps one of our biggest challenges, and we put in place not only policies, but training programs, safety audits, and
maybe also equipment.
What were considered to be dangerous mines when we purchased them became very safe mines. And we are now, I think, one of the safest groups with one of the best operating records in Mexico. We have mine rescue teams at each of the mines. They enter the annual national miners competition, mine rescue competition, and even against the big companies like IMSA or Peñoles or Frisco. Our guys take home prizes every year, first place, second place, third place. And so we have some very highly trained people in our health and safety department. Environment. One of my favorite subjects, because when you arrived in our first mine at Guanaceví, we recognized that in order to get a long-term land access agreement with the local landowners, we not only needed to pay them a rental over multiple years, but we offered to reclaim all of the disturbances like roads or drill pads. As soon as we finished using them, we would reclaim them and put soil on them and plant trees on them, because Guanaceví is part of a pine tree forest. So we voluntarily did that. It wasn't a requirement of the local people. It wasn't in the environmental regulations. But we, using our standards, decided this was the thing that we should do from the first year.
How many trees you have planted
and
so far?
So we are averaging more than 30,000 trees a year. We are, I think, the biggest planter of trees in Mexico. Because we have been doing this for so long now, it's just automatic that whenever we do surface disturbance at any of these mine sites or exploration sites, every year we also do a massive amount of reclamation, and we get the local people coming out to help us do the planting. We get kids to come out of school. We give them T-shirts, Endeavour T-shirts and hats. We give them a lunchbox, and we show them how to plant trees.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that's a real contribution, because it helps not only the people, it helps the whole environment, and I think it brings the groundwater back up, because it's still a dry area, isn't it?
First of all, it's the right thing to do,
Yeah.
and second of all, it does wonders for building trust in the community. Let's talk about community and cultural celebrations. You know, these communities are typically remote and not fully serviced by government, so they're lacking in basic government services. I'll speak to the first mine at Guanaceví. When we arrived, there was no doctor, no nurse, no clinic, no bank, no ATM machine, no ambulance, no garbage disposal, no fresh water. They had to use the creek.
Sewage.
No sewage.
Wow.
So, I mean, pretty basic stuff. And in fact, when we started helping the community to deal with all of these issues, we realized that maybe the term corporate social responsibility isn't quite the right description, because many of the things we were being asked to do are actually government responsibility. And so we actually coined our own term. We call it corporate social integrity, because it goes to our integrity to volunteer to do these things as part of improving the environment and the local community. And so we addressed many of those things at Guanaceví. We brought the first doctor, the first nurse, we opened the first clinic, we brought the first ATM machine.
And now the state followed?
And the state then started saying, well, you know, what can we do? And I said, well, let's form partnerships. So then we started forming partnerships with the state health department to bring specialists to Guanaceví, because it's 5 hours drive from the capital city, out in the mountains of the Sierra Madres. And so we do, every month we might bring an optician to do eyeglasses. We might bring a dentist to do teeth, or a specialist doctor to do lifestyle training or obesity, addressing disease. And those private-public partnerships with the state health department have been very successful. So, and you know, it's just continuing to increase the quality of life for the people who are impacted by our business.
Yeah, I would say it increases tremendously. Definitely. Wow, fantastic. Last question, of course. Let's talk about the direct environment, the impact from the mines. I mean, water, you know, used water. I'm sure you're not dumping it into a creek.
No.
You are cleaning the water, right?
So the main principle for us at Guanaceví is that they right now only have fresh water from a creek that flows through the town. But there are other communities upstream who use the creek for disposal.
That's not good.
That's not good.
Not good.
And so while we haven't yet built anything, our proposal to the local leadership is that when the mine finally does close, we would like to use the water that flows into the mine as a fresh water source, because it's very clean water. And right now we do pump water out of the mine. It's clean water, it doesn't need to be treated.
Yeah.
And it doesn't belong to us, it belongs to the state, so we just let it go downstream. But I think what we would like to do when we're ready to close the mine is to put in a proper freshwater facility with pumps. There's more than enough water that would be in the mine once we leave it to supply fresh water to the town forever.
Fantastic.
And
wow.
that's what we call a legacy project.
Yeah.
We would also like to consider the other end of the water spectrum, and that is what to do with the sewage. And many of them are just on septic systems right now, or not. And we would like to think about how to put in a proper sewage treatment plant, perhaps, and proper garbage disposal as a legacy, so that when the mine is finally gone in
All works.
years, then what we left behind is not only a legacy of economic benefit, but a real community benefit.
Absolutely. Bradford, thank you very much for that. It was a long interview, but I think it's very important to talk about those things, because there is way too less talk about, and I think you're doing exactly the right things.
You know, maybe some mining companies consider that type of activity to be a sideline to the business. We've never considered that.
I think it's super important.
We think that the path to building a commercial enterprise goes right through the heart of dealing with people's issues. And if your business can deal with people's issues and do it on a proactive basis so that it's part of your business plan, then you end up not only with a successful commercial enterprise, but having a much better impact on all of your stakeholders.
Yeah, and I think also the people who are working directly and indirectly with you, they are proactive for the company.
If you want support,
Yeah, you get it.
how do you get it? By working with people.
Exactly. Great. Bradford, thank you very much for that, and keep it going, and I think this is the right way to do mining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Bradford Cooke on CSR, corporate social responsibility. And this is a topic we covered, I think, also for the first time, really. And Endeavour Silver is really doing the right things. They take care of their workers. They take care of the families of the community. You heard it. I mustn't summarize the whole thing. But I think it's very important to have this as an ethical standard in your corporate social responsibility, in your corporate governance code. And Endeavour's doing it right. They have the support of the people, and I'm pretty sure they will have it in the future also. And have a look at environment, health, safety, work atmospheres, and work conditions. And you have happy people, and they stick always with the company and are always in the advantage for the company and for the shareholders. Thanks, and bye-bye from Vancouver.